So,
like back then, we'll talk about the conditions, what people were doing, what they were driving or riding, as people were still using horse and buggies and horses to get to the towns and villages.
Hey, if you're in need of first aid, any sort of first aid help here at the air show, just look for the EMS tents located throughout the show grounds. There's one just inside the main gate and several EMS tents throughout the show grounds. Look for the red and white tents with the cross flag on the front.
Air Show would like to take this opportunity to thank the hard-working people at Chef's Choice Catering. Chef's Choice is providing the catering this weekend for our Flightline Chalet again, and thanks to the folks at Chef's Choice.
Kroger's proud to be the presenting sponsor of the 2003 Vectren Dayton Airshow, your one-stop shopping store for over 120 years, like Orville and Wilbur. We're history in the making. Thanks for shopping Kroger. Enjoy the show. It's great to talk to the folks from Kroger at the TV show the other night. Just a great deal.
Which is proud to be an associate sponsor of the air show and celebrating the 100th anniversary of flight. Of course, with we just saw Bob Wagner, and Goodrich is the national sponsor for Patty Wagstaff. Should be fine just a little bit.
And air show fans, on behalf of the Heidelberg Distributing Company and Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch, we'd like to thank you for attending this year's show. Sit back, relax, have a cold one, and enjoy the show. Remember, for all you do, this buzz for you, and drink responsibly.
What is, I love questions like this, ingenious, innovative, and yummy all over? McDonald's new McGriddles breakfast sandwiches. 2 gold griddle cakes with maple syrup and your choice of breakfast filling. Stop by any McDonald's and try a McGriddle breakfast sandwich.
Airshow fans, Oscar Mayer, America's premier meat company, welcomes everyone to the 2003 Vectren Dayton Airshow presented by Kroger. Oscar Mayer invites all in attendance to stop by the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile located on the airshow grounds. And remember, the best packaged meats are spelled O-S-C-A-R-M-A-Y-E-R. Oscar Mayer.
You know, the designer of the Wienermobile goes way back to when we were little kids. If you've got a product that needs to go out, you need it delivered now and at a price you can afford. Call Wright Brothers Expediting. Wright Brothers Expediting has been in the freight business for nearly 15 years. For a quote on shipping locally or throughout the United States, think of the first name in flight. Have Expediting. Think Wright Brothers.
We're on the roll now. You see it. It is the F-117 On a day like this, who knows how many different air shows this airplane might go visit. But this morning, since it's a weekday, and same thing yesterday, I'm going to guess he's going to go out and do some sort of training mission because there aren't too many other air shows going on Thursday and Friday. And he will be back to do his parade passes for us, so you'll get a chance to get those Fujifilm cameras and digital photos going when it comes back through later on. It changed the role of the helicopter forever, and the Army Aviation Heritage Foundation is the only organization authorized by the public to take the public for educational rides in a real Huey helicopter. It's a $40 donation to do that ride, and they're located in the Warbird aircraft area back in the spectator area. You'll be able to find it there. Danny Clisholm, it's all yours.
All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, throughout the course of the day, as we mentioned to you early birds, we're going to take you back in time for living history. You were there. The year is 1910. The Wright brothers have been in the air since 1903. Rapid progress has been made since 1903 in 3 different facets of transportation, of which the world is enamored with: motorcycles, automobiles, and airplanes, all had a beginning in a big way around 1903. Two of the most recognizable aircraft in the world are now in the air. The first one, the bi-wing aircraft, is the Wright Model B Flyer. The second one, the monoplane that is in front of you now, was made famous by its builder and pilot, Louis Bleriot. And he accomplished something in the year 1909 that was to electrify the world. What he did with this aircraft in 1909 was to cross the English Channel. The mileage was 22 miles, an unheard of body of water in which to cross in an early aircraft. He did it under very trying conditions because the channel, the English Channel, could be rather treacherous with weather. 200 to 300 feet was his altitude. The 22 miles took 36 minutes. You do the division, and you can just about see what the speed is. Not very much. But this news got around the world because Bleriot was the first man to do it in his own airplane. He received prize money back in 1909 that kept his company from going bankrupt. Now, at that point in time, everybody wanted a Bleriot plane. There were early barnstormers whose names would become famous in the U.S. for aircraft manufacturing. Bleriot could not keep up with the orders, and because licensing back in those days were a little loose, there were companies in the United States that did knockoff or fake Bleriot. Guess what the United States pilots didn't care about? They didn't care about that. They wanted one that looked like the Bleriot to be able to go out and barnstorm around the country. The year 1910. Now the Bleriot going from your right to your left, the Wright B Flyer coming in low and from your left. Wright B Flyer now, it was time to train the world in aviation. So now the Wright B Flyer had 2 seats and 2 sets of controls. Virtually every pilot license back in those days was signed by one of the Wright brothers, as they were both still alive. B pilots are John Warlick and Don Gum. By the way, that Bleriot is not a reproduction. The monoplane is not a reproduction. The single-wing airplane was found in a barn not too many years ago and by Michael Carlson. He did repairs. It makes the airplane about 90 to 95% original. Only the repairs are the new components on the aircraft. So when you hear stories about rare airplanes being found in barns, it still happens. So you know our pilots, you know the airplanes, and you know the time period. Henry Ford had the mass-produced Model T out since 1903, and Harley Davidson had been making waves with a motorcycle since 1903. Yet to come out to farmers' fields to see the barnstormers, people still came out on horseback and in horse and buggy, wagons and buckboards. Some of them had the Model T. But here they looked up into the skies. Men could fly like birds. And of the modes of transportation that had been around for just 7 years, the airplane, flying like a bird, fascinated people the most. Because the study of birds and eagles and the way they flew had been a source of reading for people since the early aviators were making their attempts to be the first person to fly under power. And of course, we know from history that the brothers from Dayton in North Carolina at Kitty Hawk were the first to do it. Very few licensed pilots in the U.S. All the pilots' licenses were signed by one of the Wright brothers, as I mentioned to you before. They had control of American aviation.
I wanted to tell you something, Danny, as you're doing this. My grandfather, pilot's license, was signed by Orville Wright, who's number 179.
And the year?
I can't tell you. I don't.
You can tell me for friends.
No,
oh, I see.
I
thought it was top secret.
I wish I could.
Okay, look at it go head on now at this time. There it is. If you got that shot, how great could that be? The 2 early 1910, not models, but the year 1910, that's what we're going back to. You remember from the pictures of the Wright brothers that even though men who were working out of doors, they wore suits with a vest, with a tie, with a white shirt, and the tie was always cinched up. And men's hats were the order of the day. fact, I am told that the Wright brothers, one of the brothers wore a particular type of cap. It became the rage in France to have a cap like that. Just like our young people emulate sports figures today, the same thing happened in France with one of the Wright brothers' styles of hats. So two different designs, the monoplane and the biplane. Louis Bleriot, and his great feat of crossing the English Channel 22 miles in 36 minutes. You guys know math. Frank and Rob, figure that out for me.
22
How slow
miles,
that is.
That's
22,
about 48 miles an hour.
48. Could you be a little bit more specific? Never mind, I'm just teasing.
22.
All right, so that was a blistering speed back in those days. Remember, cars were only going 20 to 25 miles an hour. 100 miles an hour back in those days was unheard of. It was a dangerous speed to be at on the ground or in the air. The power plants were not producing much horsepower. They were very inefficient, very dangerous, prone to fire, very heavy. Now, Bleriot's record of crossing the English Channel, which got him some great prize money and also a record number of sales of his aircraft design around the world, was only to be eclipsed later on by Lindbergh's crossing the North Atlantic. And we'll tell you about that later on today as we continue and segment throughout the course of the day our living flight history. If you consider what's in the air now, going back to 1910, and what you're going to see, perhaps like the F-117 Stealth taxiing out a little bit earlier, the Top Gun fighters that you're going to see today. These are the people that made all that possible. These were the inspiration people that allowed us to get where we are today, but not without a tremendous amount of sacrifice and danger to life and limb and finances as well. It was a very tough time for people trying to fly. Crashes were very common for a number of reasons, none of which were pilot error. Very frail. The Bleriot coming in from your right, Clyde Cessna bought a knockoff Bleriot from a company in New York, and he learned how to fly it himself. There were not that many flight instructors. He wanted to be a barnstormer. So he learned everything he could about flying. Then he went up, had a couple of crashes, but eventually was successful. Later formed a big aviation company. But he sent a postcard to a friend about flying. And after the big news on the postcard, on the bottom, just before signing his name, he said, he wrote this: up again, down again, scared again. Very scary. Still, we were without ailerons. We were still turning the aircraft with wing warping. And if you got in a gust of wind, the wind could control your craft and not you. Your aeroplane, A-E-R-O-P-L-A-N-E, as they were commonly referred to back in that era. To the people like Michael Carlson, who found the original Bleriot, restored it, only the necessary parts, and carved the propellers himself. He is also our pilot of the single-wing ship. And to the Wright flyer about to touch down as it did in 1910. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad you are here to be a part of it this morning. We're going to do this again tomorrow and on Sunday. Going back to 1903 to 1910 up to 2003. How about a big round of applause